So I was having a conversation today on the phone with my mom about technology, and I wish that I would have written everything down or recorded it, but I've touched on this a little bit in the past, but I really want to talk about today is how the technology that we have now is literally modeled after the human organs. So computers are based on the brain, cameras are based on the eye. We all know this. It's not a bombshell. It's common knowledge. But it's so fascinating to me. And when you really think about it, this is fallen angel technology. And when I was telling my mom about all of this, at first she said it's awesome and that she loves tech. And yes, it is used for good a lot of the time from when it's used by us, the common people. However, when it's used by the so-called elites, it is used for surveillance and data mining and all of these other things that are not good. But what really fascinates me is the parallel between the story of Prometheus, who was this sort of alien that came down to Earth and taught humans fire. It parallels a lot with the idea of the Watchers in the Book of Enoch, who came down to Earth to teach women about cosmetics and makeup, and taught men about how to wage war with one another. And all of these ideas they're really forbidden, and you have to ask yourself, would we have come up with this on our own? If so, would we have come up with this early on? You know, I think about human beings as children who were once very naive and innocent, and then we just became more and more corrupt throughout time. And it's not something that I think we did to ourselves initially, but it is sort of this self-perpetuated cycle now. And I joke that the FBI and CIA they're making like residual income. They're making passive income because all of the work they've done has started doing the work itself. You know, you think about the music industry and you think about how it's used. Sorry, it's hot. I'm taking my sweater off. It's pretty hot out here. You think about the music industry and you think about the damage it has done to the black community and how it has been used to romanticize drugs and violence and single motherhood and single fatherhood and all of these horrific things that are just satanic. And you think about how at first that was perpetuated by the government, which is the same group of people that run the music industry. It's all one big conglomerate when you really think about it. The education, the prison system, the healthcare system, politics, everything is all combined, and because it's all run by a group of Satanists. So when we think about how the black community has been degraded and dehumanized, at first this was perpetuated by the government. Well, now the black community has been so corrupted that a lot of them just keep on doing it to themselves. I know this may come as a shock to a lot of you, and it may be seen as a racist idea. It's not meant to be racist at all. It's just meant to point out something that's going on so that we can help fix it. And you may ask yourself, well, why the black community then? Why of all communities in the world, why not the white community? Because the black community had excellent bonds with one another. Their families were very tight, close-knit, and they were very active in the church and very Christian and Christ-like, oriented towards Christ, I should say. So what they saw in those people was they saw them as a threat to the system, and they said, you know what, we can't allow that because those communities are very strong. They work well together. We need to start breaking them up. So you can divide the families and have the mothers be alone with the children, and then the nanny state comes in with the welfare. And so now the father, the patriarch, is now replaced by the government. So now the government is the patriarch. It is. So yes, do we live in a patriarchy? Kind of. But I remember writing years ago while I was journaling, I didn't think we really lived in a patriarchy. I actually started to think we lived in a toxic matriarchy, because when you look around within the past 5 years and within the past decade or so, who's really running things? Okay, I know the pendulum swings. I get that the left wing and the right wing are on the same bird. I get that. But if you really look at it right now, the left wing is running things. Even though Trump is in office right now, is he really? Ask yourself that. I've been seeing a lot of left-leaning ideas being perpetuated, especially in the education system. They're tying Marxism to all of these different subjects. They're tying Marxism to the orientation. When you first go to college, you're becoming oriented to their programs, and one of the first things that a lot of these universities in California do is have you read some Marxism or some bell hooks or, Paulo Freire. These are all people who had some communistic ideas and theories. And that's one of the first things they want you to do. Why? Because they don't think you should own anything. They don't think you should own your own land or your own house or have private property. So they get you to associate those things in a negative light. Do they own all of those things? Yes, they do. They have many, many properties and acres of land and money, although they're slaves to the own system that they created too. But back to the discussion of technology. So technology is akin to the ideas behind Prometheus, because you have the Watchers come down to Earth and they show us how to create these things, and then we start creating these things, and it becomes an issue because now that's the technology being used to watch us and to censor us. And think about the idea behind a computer. It's a bunch of metals and minerals like gold and silver and other things like that, and it's being electrocuted, and that's how you turn it off and on. And then coding is often binary, so you have a bunch of ones and zeros, so you have numbers like 10001, and it's supposed to do something. Nobody really understands it. Even people that work in computer science don't even understand it fully to explain it. They might claim that they do, but have you ever heard someone explain it in a language that you can understand? I have not. And I don't think anyone really understands it, because I don't think it comes from us. I don't think it comes from humanity. I think it comes from something else. I truly do. So think about the language, the coding language, okay? There's Python and Cobra. Those are the two most popular coding softwares, I guess you could say. And those are both named after snakes. Now, who was the first snake to cause humanity to fall and sin? Of course, it was Lucifer, it was the devil. So ask yourself this: why is the binary coding system named after a snake or a serpent? That should be a dead giveaway. Why is one of the number one phones an Apple phone? Why is it the Apple with a bite taken out of it? Why is the word bite a double entendre? Bite, B-I-T-E or B-Y-T-E? You have to start asking yourself, why is there so much encoding within our language that's pointing at technology as a bad thing when you really think about the names of this technology? There is a wasp on my phone right now. Okay, cool. I like being out in nature, but then when the bugs start coming out, I get a little nervous. But it's all good. It's just crazy. So you have the Watchers that come down here and they start giving human beings ideas. And now you think about how the apple was used, or whatever, the fruit of forbidden knowledge was used to corrupt man. Well, what are people doing now to get knowledge? They're using entheogens. They're using DMT. They're using LSD. They're using psilocybin mushrooms. And what they're doing is, a lot of people are seeing these jesters or jokers, which are basically the Nephilim. They're these disembodied spirits. Paul Staub's great researcher, he talks about this. I used to watch a lot of Terence McKenna's stuff, and then I watch Paul Staub's now, and Paul Staub's, I really feel he understands Terence McKenna's work, but he's sort of debating against it. Okay, the work was interesting, but the conclusions McKenna came upon, he might have been a little misguided, because he did McKenna acknowledged that these jesters and jokers were actually alien beings that you could talk to and learn from and get ideas from and get gnosis. Gnosis means knowledge, and Sophia means wisdom. So and gnosis and Sophia go together because that's Gnosticism. So you could get all of these like downloads and knowledge, but at the end of the day, what if you're being deceived? What if there's deception mixed in? That's not going to be a good thing. Sorry, I hear somebody yelling and I don't know what's going on. I think they're just joking around. Okay, but So you can be deceived very easily when you start listening to these beings, because at the end of the day, what are they telling you? Okay, they start to tell you, oh, you are your own God, you can do whatever you want. That is just Luciferian Crowleyanism coming in with these jester beings. That's what they are telling these people. And a lot of these people that do these entheogens, they end up getting like lost in the sauce, and they end up going down the occult rabbit hole and going crazy. And I think that's what happened to the Nazis and what happened to Hitler. And I think that's why they had to be taken out, because, and I think they haven't been fully taken out. I think they still run the government, but I think that they had to be taken out because they were, I mean, ask yourself this: what is the black hole sun, right? What is the swastika? The swastika is the black hole sun. And the black hole sun, you know, it's in that song by Soundgarden where he's literally calling for the eschatological end of the world, where everything gets sucked up into this black hole. And in the music video, there's literally these reptilian beings with serpentine tongues sticking out, and there's these like crazy Christians talking about the end of the world when they're actually not crazy at all, because that's what's literally being depicted. So he was caricaturizing the Christians while showing what the Christians are actually saying is true. So it's just truth in plain sight. It's like, okay, look here, you're being mocked whilst you're actually correct. And, you know, what happened to Chris Cornell? He was a useful puppet for a while, and then he spoke out a little bit, I guess, and they took him out. So it's kind of like when you think about the movie Batman and the Dark Knight. What happens? You have the Joker in the beginning, and he's perpetuating this whole like sting, this heist operation, and there's these other clowns working for him. They're all wearing clown masks. Well, what happens is after one gets the money, then he shoots the other, then he gets the money, then he shoots the other, and then at the end the Joker takes the money from the other clown, and then he shoots the clown. So it's like these people all end up working for the same so-called elites. They're not really elite, but they call themselves, they're actually beneath us because they're demonic, and demons will always be beneath humanity. So you have that going on, and it's a system that takes out its own people because it's so greedy. And it's like the Ouroboros, the snake that just eats itself. It just destroys itself. It's like this feeding frenzy. So with the Nazis and with Hitler and all of them, they just went crazy. They just went crazy with all of the black magic and with all of the I believe they were probably dabbling with the entheogens and with a lot of things too, because why else would they be using the swastika? Why else would they be using the black hole sun? If you've ever watched the show Lost, the Nazis are in that too. They're called Dharma, because honestly, one of the things they were doing, think back to the forbidden fruit of knowledge. It's this obsession with knowledge without any love or compassion. So, and love is the most important, it's above all things in the Bible, it's true. As all of this knowledge without love is meaningless, and that's how you get deceived, and that's how you also just go after knowledge for the sake of knowing, for the sake of knowledge is power, but when you become power hungry, you start going after knowledge and learning without loving your fellow man, and then that's when you have all these unethical studies where people are harmed just so that you can learn something. It's ridiculous. So with them, and also Hitler was reading a lot of like Madame Blavatsky and things like that. I actually knew someone back in my hometown who did he did like a master project while he was an undergrad about that, and he was telling me about that. Yeah, it's really crazy. So yeah, you get all of this forbidden knowledge. What good is it? You know, what good is it when you're deceived at the end of the day? And I've tried to go down many, many rabbit holes, and I really have, and I've learned so much about all of this stuff. And then even then I have to take a break and say, okay, well, why am I learning this? Why am I reading about their religion to understand them when at the end of the day they were deceived? Because at one point I was like, I really just want to know everything that they know. And then I realized, I'm like, they don't even know what's going on. They're not even illuminated like they think they are. But yeah, anyway, it's just this technology, it just comes from somewhere else. And these beings that give us this technology and they give us these ideas, think about it like this. They say we're in the third dimension, and a lot of these physicists and people that dabble in quantum physics say there's 12 dimensions. Who knows? I don't know why they come up with 12. It's probably another occult number. But who knows how many there really are. You think about it. If you have these two-dimensional beings like shadow people and all of these demonic creatures and entities, they're beneath us. We're in the third dimension. Who knows? Maybe we're higher. We don't know that. But what's above us is, of course, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, the Trinity. What is God? And then his angels, they might be above us. I don't know. I know they surround us and they care about us and they protect us. But what I was going to say is that these dimensions are all superimposed upon one another. And so you can have entities around you and not know it, but you can sort of feel it or sense it. And that's why sometimes if you watch horror movies, it attracts these lower vibrational entities. And when they take upon your fear, they consume your fear. It's called loosh. So that's why you can sort of sense these things. But on the other side of the spectrum, you can sense when there's something good around you, when you feel a sense of joy, or you feel a sense of protection, or sometimes you might feel a sense of nostalgia, or just, you know, some sort of positive sense that makes you feel like, okay, I'm on the right track. Or you might just get emotional at some point and not know why, and it's like you need to purge yourself of a negative emotion. And that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you just need to cry tears of joy, or just tears of like, okay, this is a big weight off my chest. Like if you've made a big life decision, or if you've moved, or if you've got a new job, you know, sometimes it's like your prayer has been answered and you just need to kind of cry and let it out. That's a positive release. That's a catharsis. But when you have like a negative emotion, or you're feeling really afraid or really anxious, these beings can truly feed off of that. And I've seen one that was this sort of shadowy figure, and it looked like a gnome, but it was like all black, and it had this big pointed hat, and it was just watching me in my room while I was breaking down and crying and having a migraine and you know, fighting with my family and just going through all this negativity. It was like literally feeding off the negativity, and that was like a wake-up call for me. Like, wow, it's like a parasite, really. So yeah, I mean, just think about all these things that have been created by us, by human hands, but developed, and first the idea of it comes from something else, you know. So you don't want to become a useful pawn for a watcher or a fallen angel or anything like that. You want to be useful for Christ. You want to do Christ's work. You want to work with your hands. I really think the Amish had the right idea. I really do. But I think tech can be used for positivity. I think we can take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it for good, like I'm trying to do. Not perfect, obviously, but I'm trying to just speak fast, get the ideas out quickly, and not be too long or verbose, because I know people's attention spans can only go so far and so long, especially now in modernity. I hope it made sense, but I'm just kind of spilling out some ideas for you guys. And yeah, ever since I was having some health-related issues about 6 years ago, I ended up not eating and sleeping, and I just felt like I went down this rabbit hole. And I feel like towards the end days, God is spilling his wisdom and his knowledge upon us, and I'm learning a lot at a very rapid pace, but I don't know everything, and I'm not God. I'm just here to talk to you guys and share some info with you and see if I can wake up your senses and help you think about things on a deeper level. But I'm sure a lot of you have already had these thoughts too, so maybe I'm preaching to the choir, and maybe it's just nice for you to hear someone else say it. And yeah, hopefully it was not convoluted. Hopefully what I'm saying was clear, and I think I am finished with the video now. So thank you guys. Have a great day. Feel free to share any of your ideas. If you like the video, send a like. You don't have to, but I mainly just like the comment section and like reading what you guys have to say. So yeah, all right, God bless you, and see you in the next one. Peace out.